how do you handle the trade rumors? It's going to take a hefty price if you want Jarren Duran after the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never really looked at it like that.
I touched base with all 30 general managers and team presidents, and Sandy Alcantara's name was first in the list.
The MLB trade deadline is right around the corner, and it's on pace to be one of the best in recent memory. We're about to see MVP candidates on the move, future Hall of Famers on new teams, and even former Cy Youngs join title contenders. One team might trade away nearly $100 million in contracts, while another team trades away their franchise player. This trade deadline is about to be insane, and the only questions left are who's about to be traded, which teams will be getting reinforcements, but more importantly, which teams will be buying and selling. But before we get into the video today, guys, we're doing a giveaway on the channel. We're trying to get to 25k subs during the summer, and we're giving away one official MLB jersey every single week to a subscriber who has notifications turned on to the channel. So if you don't already have that done, please do that right now. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. The first team that will be buying is obvious, and that's the Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers currently have the best record in all of baseball, and it's easy to see why. They have a solid pitching staff with an ace capable of winning the Cy Young. They have a strong lineup with power bats like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson featured in the middle, and new free agent signings Gleyber Torres has been amazing. So what could a team like this possibly need? Well, first and foremost, aside from Tarek Skubal, the rotation is good but not great. Jack Flaherty re-signing with Detroit after being traded to the Dodgers last season is a great feel-good story, but his ERA of 4.84 is anything but fun. Casey Mize and Reese Olson have certainly been excellent, but after rookie Jackson Jobe needed to get Tommy John surgery in June, the rotation could use one more middle-of-the-pack starter. The bullpen could also benefit from the addition of another 7th or 8th inning caliber arm. Now, another team that is definitely going to be buying this deadline is the New York Yankees. After a red-hot start, June and July have been terrible months for the New York Yankees. For reference, the Yankees went from being first place in the AL East division to now being 3 games back of the Blue Jays. If things don't turn around soon, they'll be competing with the Red Sox for 4th place. But we all know that won't happen because the Yankees are going to do what the Yankees always do, and that's buy at the deadline. Aside from Aaron Judge, there isn't one consistent bat in the Yankees lineup, besides maybe Jazz Chisholm. Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger have been solid, and Bellinger is on a 14-game hit streak at the time of this recording, but they have drastic platoon splits. Trent Grisham has cooled off from his red-hot start to the season. Anthony Volpe has been terrible, and Jason Dominguez hasn't gotten consistent enough at-bats to determine whether or not he's a solid player. This team is in dire need of some bats, and I truly do believe Brian Cashman will do anything to get another bat in front of Aaron Judge, even if that means trading Spencer Jones. But those two teams are obvious. What about some teams that are going to be selling at the deadline? The first team I genuinely think is going to sell are the Cleveland Guardians. And what's funny is that if somebody were to tell me this before the season, I wouldn't believe them. But now the Cleveland Guardians find themselves in 4th place in the AL Central and in the midst of a 10-game losing streak. Just 1 month ago, the Guardians had a solid chance at an AL wildcard, but now they're just trying to get back over 500. This is a team that 1 season ago was battling the Yankees in the ALCS, is now on the verge of trading the pieces that made that playoff run possible. Now, another team I think that are about to sell are the Boston Red Sox. At the beginning of June, I probably would have thought the Red Sox were buyers, especially after going 5-1 against the Yankees, including a sweep. But after trading Rafael Devers, I have no choice but to call the Red Sox sellers. And I know they've had an extremely hot start to July, sweeping the Nationals and winning 7 of their last 9 games, but they stand to gain too much. This team has so many young pieces lined up for future playoff success. Why not supplement them in the future by trading away 1-year deals that could fetch you some elite prospects right now? Plus, even if the Red Sox keep all of their potential trade assets, would they still be good enough to make the playoffs? I mean, we're talking about a team that's been as mid as possible since 2021. And keep in mind, they just traded their best hitter. So unless something drastic changes, it's in the Red Sox best interest to sell big time, including the first player who I believe will be traded at the deadline, and that is Jarren Duran. Duran is an All-Star Game MVP, hit 83 extra base hits last season, and in any normal season likely would have won the AL MVP award, seeing as he put up nearly 9 B WAR last season. We are talking about a guy who's capable of being the best player on an entire team, and he's in trade rumors for one simple reason. The Red Sox have a huge logjam in the outfield. Aside from Duran, the Red Sox have Wilyer Abreu, Cedric Rafaela, Roman Anthony, and even Christian Campbell, who's played a solid amount of center field this season. They even have Garcia in AAA and just traded for James Tibbs from San Francisco. They have nothing but outfield prospects. So what better way to solve the logjam than by trading away the oldest player with the most service time who has the most value? Just makes sense to me. Now, the San Diego Padres have been heavily linked to Duran, and the rumored return would be Ethan Salas, who is honestly kind of odd considering the Red Sox just discovered they have one of the best catchers in MLB with Carlos Narvaez, but Duran isn't the only Red Sox player on the trade block. I could talk about Alex Bregman, Lucas Giolito, Wilyer Abreu, who honestly all have had solid chances to be traded at the deadline, but instead I want to talk about Aroldis Chapman. In case you haven't heard, the Cuban Missile is immune to aging. This guy is 37 years old and he is still out there pumping 103-mile-an-hour pitches. He's having his best season in nearly a decade. So why would the Red Sox want to deal him, especially if they believe in their playoff chances? Well, it's simple. Chapman is on a one-year deal and is about to turn 38. So sure, he hasn't shown any regression so far this season, but Father Time is undefeated. Plus, the Red Sox just traded for another triple-digit flamethrower in Jordan Hicks. And if he pans out, not only could he take over for Chapman, he's already under contract for the future. So I genuinely believe that Chapman has the highest chance to be traded out of any player on the Red Sox simply because of how old he is. Why would you keep a 37-year-old for 6 more months when you could trade him now and get pieces that could supplement your team for the next decade? Ironically, the next player here almost became a Red Sox before the start of the season, but since they didn't, they're still on the trade block. Despite the fact that the Cardinals have been making some noise in the National League wildcard race, Nolan Arenado has been in trade rumors since the beginning of the season. If you include this season, the future Hall of Fame third baseman is getting paid over $50 million until 2027. And I understand why the Cardinals would want him gone, especially when his OPS plus is under the league average. Arenado is definitely not the defensive marvel he was when he was younger, but he's still in the 84th percentile of outs above average at third base. He can still play a positive third base for a team looking to compete. Personally, I'd love to see him get traded to the Yankees. I think that's a perfect fit. With this trade, they can finally move Jazz back over to second base while finally having a defensive anchor at the hot corner. Not to mention the fact I'm sure his offense would benefit from playing at Yankee Stadium full time. I feel like the Yankees, especially this season, have had a remarkable ability to take older veterans and completely rejuvenate their careers. So I honestly wouldn't be too shocked if Arenado is the next guy to go to New York and ends up hitting 25 home runs. Unlike the next player on this list, who honestly could hit 40 home runs and steal 70 bases anywhere he plays. Ever since Ronald Acuna Jr. came back from his torn ACL, he's been one of, if not the best player in the National League. The former MVP is currently hitting over 330 with an OPS over 1,000. He's been otherworldly for Atlanta, but there's just one problem. He might want off of the Braves. Because in case you don't know, Ronald Acuna Jr. and Brian Snitker, the manager of the Braves, have a long and complicated history. You see, Snitker and Acuna have been with the Braves major league team for nearly a decade, but the pair have been in the organization for a combined 53 years. Acuna played affiliated ball with the Braves all the way back in 2015, while Brian was hired as a manager for a Braves minor league team back in 1983. The two have been in each other's lives consistently, and after multiple incidences where Acuna publicly said he feels like Snitker treated him differently than others, Acuna's tenure in Atlanta might be finished. Now, I know a trade like this is unlikely, even if the Braves are struggling this season, and they are struggling, but after the Red Sox traded Devers, I have no choice but to consider all the options. This Braves trade might seem a little outlandish, and to be fair, the Braves did play well last season when Acuna was injured, so they have proven that they can win without him. So to me, this is a trade that maybe doesn't make sense because he's on a good deal, but you never know. Staying on the Braves for a second, another player that I think could get traded from them is Marcell Ozuna.
I'm Ozuna from the Braves.
Unlike Ronald Acuna, who is literally the face of the Braves, Marcell Ozuna is extremely expendable for many reasons. First off, the Atlanta Braves are 10 games under 500. Their playoff hopes are nearly done for. Secondly, Ozuna is a free agent after this season. why waste his final season under contract not winning anything when you could flip him for some prospects? Not to mention the fact that Ozuna is only 35 next season, so I don't see any reason why the Braves can't just try to re-sign him in free agency. Similar to Aroldis Chapman, I'm extremely confident in an Ozuna trade happening before the deadline, strictly because of his age and contract. If he wasn't old and under contract for only half a season, I could imagine a world where Atlanta tries to bring him back for a more competitive 2026 campaign, but that's just not going to happen this season. Personally, I would love to see Ozuna end up on a team like the Tigers. Just imagine a middle of the order with Green, Torkelson, Baez, and Ozuna. I genuinely think that they could make a run at the American League. I also think they would benefit from trading for this next pitcher. In the offseason, the A's handed Luis Severino a 3-year, $67 million deal, which signaled that maybe the A's would now be willing to spend since they're relocating. However, since that deal, Severino has been 2 separate pitchers. On the road, Severino's ERA is a solid 3.04, but at home, it skyrockets to a terrible 7.04. For those reasons, despite the fact that the A's just handed him a nearly $70 million deal, he's been an ideal trade target. As long as Severino doesn't pitch in Sacramento, he's been a pretty solid pitcher. The A's have been flipping older veterans for prospects for years, so there's no reason that Severino can't be the next iteration of that. Now, I already mentioned the Tigers as a team I'd like to see acquire Severino, but I'd also like to see the Astros make a run at him as well. Houston has been on fire as of late, and Hunter Brown has been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. If they can add a solid middle of the rotation arm to their arsenal, I think Houston has a chance to continue their dynasty into the 2025 postseason. Unlike the Orioles, who in many people's eyes should be starting their own dynasty right now, but instead they're just dropping at the bottom of the AL East. You see, the Orioles were expected to do big things this season, but instead they're in the gutter. And for that reason, I expect them to trade Cedric Mullins. Now, I know what you might be thinking, who would want Cedric Mullins at the trade deadline? He's a negative B-WAR player, he's under the hood metrics look awful, and he's seemingly been on the decline since 2021. While I do understand that take, I also have to point out that players like Mullins get moved all of the time at the deadline. Mullins is in the final year of his contract, and the Orioles, who, keep in mind, have no playoff hopes, wouldn't mind getting rid of his contract for anything instead of losing him for nothing. Plus, who knows, maybe all Mullins needs is a change of scenery. I mean, after all, the guy is still a solid defender in terms of outs above average. Maybe a new approach at the plate could help revive that 30 home run power he's flashed in the past. Mullins isn't a bad major league player. He's just a victim of the fact that the Orioles farm system has major league ready talent everywhere you look. Kind of similar to the Brewers, whose pitching lab can turn anyone into elite arms. Speaking of that, Freddy Peralta has been excellent this season. The 6-foot righty has a sub-3 ERA and even leads the National League in wins. Not to mention, his baseball savant page is red hot. So let me explain to you why the Brewers would trade him while just 3.5 games back from the NL Central crown. First and foremost, let me remind you of the Josh Hader Padres trade. The Brewers actually made this deal with an even better record than the one they currently have now. Plus, similar to how Milwaukee used Devin Williams as a replacement to Josh Hader, the Brewers can also use Quinn Priester as a replacement for Peralta. You also have to remember Peralta has a team option for next season, which means his value is even higher. The Brewers could easily flip Peralta for a top 100 prospect, and given their history with pitchers about to enter free agency, I wouldn't be surprised if Peralta ended up on a contender, or more specifically, the New York Mets, who are in dire need of some rotational change in order to stop their losing skid. Now, Freddy Peralta has a high ceiling, but not as much as the next player who's proven they can be the best pitcher in the league. Back in 2022, Sandy Alcantara proved he was the best pitcher in the National League. His ERA was just 2.28, and he pitched an NL leading 228.2 innings behind 6 complete games. We are talking about a historic modern pitching performance. His baseball savant page was on fire, but fast forward to 2025 and everything's changed. His ERA has ballooned to over 7. He's given up the most earned runs in the National League, and he's on pace to be the worst starting pitcher in baseball. Aside from his fastball, none of his pitches are good. But for some reason, now that Alcantara is at the bottom of his value and just a few seasons away from free agency, now the Marlins want to trade him. I honestly believe the fact that Alcantara being on the trade block at the bottom of his value has more to do with the Marlins' ineptitude as a franchise in general. I mean, seriously, whatever they get for him right now is going to pale in comparison to the haul they could have gotten in 2023. Personally, I believe Sandy still has some solid stuff. I genuinely just think the Marlins franchise is so terrible, it's ruining his performance. Unlike this next player who's currently in the midst of the best season of his career. Ryan O'Hearn is one of my favorite players in Major League Baseball because of his ability to be self-aware. I mean, come on. When Rafael Devers got traded and he celebrated because it increased his odds to be selected as the AL starting DH in the All-Star game, that was pretty funny. But in all honesty, he is having a career year in a contract season. This year, O'Hearn wasn't just selected to the All-Star game. He was actually the only Orioles selected at all. More interestingly, O'Hearn is in a contract season, like I said before, which means the Orioles would be making a terrible decision by not trading him. I mean, come on, just trade him for prospects since the season is a waste. You guys aren't making the playoffs, and then you reload in the offseason, and maybe next year's a better year. That is, unless Baltimore has plans to make Ryan O'Hearn their franchise DH for the next 5 seasons, I suggest they just move him for some starting pitching because their rotation's combined age is literally older than the invention of sliced bread. And I'm being serious, by the way. But in all seriousness, it is nice to see O'Hearn finally settling in after a rocky start to his career with Kansas City. Unlike the final player whose entire big league career has been spent in the south side of Chicago. It is insane to think that just a few years ago, Luis Robert Jr. was a 5-WAR player, and just a few more years before that was battling to win the AL Central. But now, in 2025, his OPS is under 600, and he looks like a shell of his former self. I understand, the White Sox are terrible, and all that losing has to negatively affect your play on the diamond. But come on, how does a player regress this badly, this fastly? As we all know, the White Sox have no success in their near future, and since Robert has a $20 million club option this offseason and the next, it's in Chicago's best interest to deal him. I'm honestly not sure what a Robert trade package would look like, considering the team taking him on is taking on a lot of the risk considering his $40 million in combined options, but I still feel like he could fetch some solid prospects. Similar to a lot of other players on this list, I really believe Robert's on-the-field play is suffering from playing with a bad franchise for too long. I feel like a change of scenery could really change Luis Robert's career, and if Chicago doesn't move on from him by the end of July, they're making a huge mistake. At this point, it's time to let Robert try to rebuild himself elsewhere while the White Sox try to fix just about everything that's wrong with their franchise. Now, that'll conclude what I'm looking out for at this MLB trade deadline. If you disagree with any placement on this list, feel free to let me know down below. But if you believe I left somebody off, also let me know how you feel. I believe a lot of teams can take this deadline as an opportunity to build winners in the future. For example, the Boston Red Sox have Roman Anthony, Marcell Mayer, Wilyer Abreu, Cedane Rafaela, Garrett Crochet, and Christian Campbell. That's an insane young core. You're telling me they wouldn't benefit in 2026 and beyond by trading players like Duran and Chapman? Come on. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Who do you guys think is going to get traded at the deadline? Who do you think will be the biggest name dealt at the end of July? But more importantly, which teams will end up winning and losing come the beginning of August? Let me know in the comments below. And if you appreciate the video, please leave a like and subscribe. That's all for today. I'll see you guys on the next one.